Good morning, friends. How are you all doing? I'm Dr. Sridharan. I'm an asthma allergy consultant doing a lot of respiratory practice. And during this pandemic, starting from last March, we've been very active in COVID management, and vast majority of that being done over telemedicine. So we need to have a very keen sense of understanding of the various manifestations of COVID to be able to diagnose this disease in a very early stage over telemedicine. When you see the patient in person, it's a different story. So we have to be really kind of intuitively equipped to ask the right kind of questions to get the right kind of answers so that we can have a proper diagnosis and management plan. What we need to understand is COVID doesn't present the same way in every person. Even though the common symptoms are like extreme fatigue, soreness, muscle aches, body ache, sore throat, cough, shortness of breath, fever to varying grades. It's important to realize that not everybody has got every symptom. For some, it's totally asymptomatic, and still we are obligated to make a proper diagnosis so that some of the contacts who are maybe at high risk, like with the comorbidities like diabetes or hypertension or chronic respiratory problems, they may run into problems, even though the asymptomatic person may be okay. So with all this in mind, we need to approach COVID. The main difference between the first wave and the second wave is, the second wave we seem to be seeing a lot of mutant strains. They talk about single mutant and double mutant strains and some other strange mutant strains which are not studied completely yet. But the fact is, this mutant strain seems to affect more members in the same family than the previous one. We used to see like 1 or 2 cases in each family last year, but this time, if there are like 5 members in the family, everybody seems to be going through that, and vast majority of them turn PCR positive, and many of them are symptomatic as well. That seems to be the main difference. It affects more people, it's more infective, but to tell you the truth, the sad fact is it also tends to cause more mortality. We see a lot more deaths in very young people during this wave 2, second wave. The causes may be multiple. It could be that it's a more virulent strain. It's also possible that the young people are not vaccinated, so they are at a high risk for having all the complications, while the vaccinated ones, the older ones, are kind of partially, if not completely, protected. And also, many of them are more active, the youngsters. They're more mobile and they're having a high risk of getting exposed to the virus. All these things could be contributing factors. Unless we do routine autopsy in all these young people who die of COVID, we won't be able to pinpoint and tell the death was actually caused by like COVID pneumonia versus thromboembolic phenomenon involving like a pulmonary embolism or a coronary embolism or a cerebral embolism or a renal embolism. All kinds of things can happen in COVID. So our extreme hypoxia, the silent hypoxia they talk about in COVID, it could cause death in a vast number of young people who have died now. Maybe it's a hypoxia that killed. So these are the things, and it's very important for us to monitor the cytokines closely when you're treating COVID patients in telemedicine. It's very important that we have an idea about what the IL-6 and D-dimer, C-reactive protein, serum ferritin, LDH, and those, and WBC count, platelet count, all these things we need to closely monitor. Regarding the high risk of COPD and asthma patients, as long as COVID is concerned, we need to realize that these patients, if they are on proper protective inhalers, the maintenance drugs and the rescue inhalers, and they are periodically watched by the doctor. The PFTs were assessed, and all their comorbidities are under control. And most important, they are vaccinated against the flu and the pneumonia. I think they are okay. And the vaccine against swine flu and the general flu, the influenza A, seems to have a protective effect from bad COVID attacks. A lot of studies say that. Of course, pneumococcal vaccine protection is also equally important. So even though these people are running a high risk, the risk can be reduced by having a proper immunization program for them, proper monitoring, proper education, and alerting these people about the importance of getting COVID vaccination. When it comes to COVID vaccines, the most important message is everybody should have a vaccine given to them. Universal vaccination seems to be the only definitive way of controlling this disease, which seems to be just going out of control at this point. Universal vaccination may sound utopic, but I think it could be made practical by the availability of the vaccines and the education of the public about the safety of these vaccines and the efficacy of the vaccines, and the vaccines' ability to definitely prevent death and severe morbidity in patients who are vaccinated. Even though the vaccine is not 100% protective, it may only be 70%, but still the attacks are milder, they seldom need hospitalization, and very rare to see a properly vaccinated person who had 2 doses actually dying of COVID disease. And whether it's Covaxin or Covishield or Sputnik or whatever vaccine is going to become available in the near future, I think people should realize that whichever comes their way first, they should grab it and have it instead of waiting for what they imagine to be the right vaccine or the best vaccine. So vaccine is very important. I think these are the salient points that I like to ponder over during this very brief discussion on COVID. There's a lot more to say on COVID. It's a very big subject, but our time is restricted. If there are more specific queries, I would be very happy to answer those. Thank you all. You all stay safe, wear mask, practice social distancing, sanitize your hands as often as possible, and stay safe. Thank you.